You're listening to Mr. Save a Home, Becoming an Agent Tour.
Good day, good people. My name is Navid Moosa, and I am your host for today and hopefully every day for Mr. Save a Home, Becoming an Agent Tour. For your first-time listeners, I'm going to let you know right now this is not your usual episode. My energy is normally a little bit more up than what it is now. And for those who are coming back, you kind of probably already picked that up, that vibe where this is not as a high energetic as I normally am. I have been debating on whether to do this particular episode back and forth, but after really thinking about it, talking to people about it in general, not a lot, because I don't let a lot of people in, I think I'm going to. So, without further ado, here we go. This podcast is about real estate for the most part, and it's about what was initially meant for real estate for the most part. It has become a mindset podcast, which is still valid, right? Because when you get into investing in anything, there does take a certain mindset, it does take a particular mindset, I guess is the best way to put it. Essentially, this podcast is a mindset podcast, mindset for investors in general. Today's episode, we're going to talk about what's going on out there. We're going to talk about racism. We're going to touch on Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, white privilege, those key topics there, and all lives matter. We're going to touch on all those there. Excuse me. I mean, it's not, for those of the first time who don't know, I was born here in the States. I'm a Muslim. I practice Islam. I don't hide it. I can hang with Hispanics and I look like an Hispanic person. I can hang with people from India and I look like them as well. My family is from Uganda, Africa. This is hard for me to put into words without like really getting super pissed off, but back when 9/11 had happened, that definitely put a spotlight on my religion, on my way of life. We don't, side note, Muslims really don't call Islam a religion. We kind of call it, we call it a way of life because it does dictate our life. So that spotlight was put on us unnecessarily, but it was there nevertheless. And in a weird way, although it was more bad than it was good, it was kind of a wake up call for a lot of people in regards to racism in that way too, or Islamophobia. And so now, fast forward, even to today's events with George Floyd over there, with him dying by that officer. Let's just be clear. Racism has always been here. Okay? It hasn't gone away. It won't go away. For those who think that we can be healed with magic unicorns and holding hands, I'm sorry, you're just delusional. It can't. It won't. It would be nice, but let's be honest. Racism is always here. It has been finding new ways to hide itself behind closed doors, sometimes corporate doors, sometimes really big doors. It's always been around. It always will be around. And that's not me being doom and gloom. It's just me being realistic and me understanding that, okay, this is the world we live in. How do I navigate my best way around it? How do I make sure my family's is navigating the best way? I mean, my son is now sitting in the front seat of our car. And besides him learning to put on his seatbelt, I tell him, if I get pulled over, put your hands here. Put your hands on your lap so the officer can see them, or put your hands on the dashboard. That's the first thing I told him. because that's the last thing I just don't even think about that. So, and I apologize from all scatterbrain here, and I'm kind of going all over the place, but this is just, I try to make my podcast less than 10 minutes because I know everyone is busy. And so when you sign in and you give me your time, I want to make it useful for you, make it worth your time, because I know the time is precious and valuable. Excuse me. But in the time that I do an average podcast is the same amount of time that George Floyd died. So think about that. Seriously. In the amount of time that I actually record and do a podcast, and that same amount of time, a man's life was taken for no apparent reason. We have these phrases that have been around for a while: white privilege, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, blue lives matter, and everyone, all four of those phrases cause controversy, cause discussions, cause arguments to take place, and rightfully so for the most part. But I'm going to give you my take. I'm going to try to do my best job to keep it brief. My take on each one of those. So first, let's get into all lives matter. Yes, all lives do matter to me. However, all lives don't matter to everybody, right? Let's just be honest, because if it was, we wouldn't have racism. We wouldn't have KKK, Nazis. There's a lot of things wouldn't have taken place in our life in general, because if all lives truly mattered, there would be no segregation, no separation, or anything like that. So, do they? Yes. Is that something that should be said? All lives matter? Yeah, of course, it should be said, and it should be practiced, but it's not a reality, and it hasn't been. It's never been a reality. Okay, so that's that. Blue lives matter. For those who don't know, that's for the men and women in blue. That policemen matter. Okay, let's get this straight. That one asshole was just that, an asshole. What he did was inexcusable. Okay, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But think about it. These police officers, men and women, they are tasked, for the most part, to go ahead and put their life on the line for a complete stranger. We're telling them, hey, when that phone rings, we don't care what you think of this person, but you got to go protect them, and you got to go help them out and save them out. And there's a price associated with that. So there really is a cost associated with people saving other people's lives. Whether we like that or not, it comes with that price. So to go around and talk about, all cops are corrupt, we've seen enough corrupt stuff, don't get me wrong. But I'm willing to bet there are more good officers than there are bad officers out there. I'm sorry. It's just that we are expected to do the good, or they are expected to do good, that it doesn't get highlighted. So when they do something like this, which is reprehensible, which in my opinion, that was not a police officer. That man was not a man. He was a coward. Okay? So what he did was just what he did. And even the officers who surrounded him and watched it take place. Okay, they were not officers. They weren't men. They were human beings that are sickening and disgusting. So that's what they were. Let's not call them officers. That is not to discount or to play down that there isn't corruption in the law enforcement. Come on, we know there is. There's corruption in politicians. There's bad doctors. There's bad dentists. There's bad lawyers. There's bad realtors. There's slum landlords. They all exist. Every industry has somebody who just power trips or gets greedy or whatever. All right. And there's that saying, right? One bad apple. We can't punish everybody, all those good that's done day in and day out by these officers. So let's kibosh that sound that, every single cop is corrupt and they don't do anything. I've seen a lot good than I have seen bad. Straight up. And like I said, that wasn't a police officer. That was a jackass, dickhead, whatever you want to call him. And by the way, I don't see anyone. As soon as you side note, the minute someone says Black Lives Matter, then you hear, oh, all lives matter. But when someone says blue lives matter, no one ever says all lives matter. We like, oh yeah, blue lives matter. Let's just keep quiet about that. Think about that for a second, and you'll see where I'm going with that statement there. Now let's talk about white privilege. And white people, I feel bad for y'all. I do. I'm sorry. I know some of y'all probably saying, what the hell you feel bad? Listen, I know more good white people than I know bad white people, all right? And they are some good, fine people, okay? They're business partners. They give me great advice, break bread with them. Contrary to popular demand, some of them can cook really good, have some flavor in their food. But white privilege doesn't mean racism. Here's what white privilege is. You can go into a store with you and your friends at the age of 16. The white kid, or whether it be male or female, can go into a department store, okay, with your 3 or 4 other white friends and go and look around and not worry about being followed by security or by having the store employees have an extra eye on you. Okay, I've experienced that. Quick story, my brother worked at what now the department store is closed, it was called Bonton back in the day. He worked there. I came in with some family members. We're all, peanut butter tan skin looking. And they didn't know that he was my brother. I walked in with my family and friends, and one of the employees came over to him and said, hey, you need to watch those guys. My brother looked at him and said, that's my brother. That's my family. And they're like, oh. You don't have to worry about that. White people, you don't. And so that's white privilege. When you walk in, you don't have to look over your shoulder. You don't have to worry about when you're looking up at an item at a store, you're looking at a piece of shirt, you're sizing up, oh, should I buy this? Does it fit me? They're actually saying, oh, he's just looking at it, checking it out. But me, or if I take a black man with me, if we look at a shirt and we hold it up, you know what's going to happen? If I hold that shirt up and I look around and I'm actually looking for a fitting room to try the shirt on, that's not going to be portrayed. The salesmen there are going to look at me and say, well, is he looking around to see if he can take this item and steal it and run out? That's what we get looked at. That's what black people get looked at. That's what Hispanic people get looked at. That's what some people who are non-white get looked at. So that's white privilege. That doesn't mean you're racist. It just means you put that stereotype and you amplify whenever you see convenient. And we all find convenient things to make ourselves feel better. Well, he came in, his pants were low, and his jacket was baggy, and he had an earring on. Really? That's what made you suspect? Not the color of his skin? Bullshit. Okay? So white privilege doesn't mean you're a racist. White privilege just says you can go into a lot of establishments and not worry about looking over your shoulder. That's what that means. That's the problem with white privilege. It's not that everyone that's white is automatically rich, automatically spoiled. And hey, listen, don't get me wrong. Remember I said, hey, white people, I feel bad for y'all. Here's what I feel bad for. The minute you see a young white person in a nice fancy car, automatically the assumption is, oh, daddy must have gave him that. Oh, he got daddy's money. Oh yeah, he got that. Come on now, let's be honest. The minute we see a young black man in a nice car, it's like, what's he do for work that he can afford that? You see a young white guy in a car, it's like, oh, dad gave it to him. Now that's stereotyping. I understand that. But racism falls into that as well. Because those stereotypes lead into other thoughts. And then when these other thoughts come, like, damn, stereotypes for the most part are negative. And then you start thinking negative thoughts about that person. And then that manifests into dislike and hatred. Ergo, racism. So you really have to think about all these things there. So we're not discounting all lives matter, blue lives matter, or, white privilege. It's just that when you have to acknowledge all of those things, that's the only way we can all exist. We have to acknowledge each other. When you put one supreme over the other, then one acts like it's more supreme over the other. That's where the segregation kicks in, the division kicks in. So now let's talk about why Black Lives Matter and why that should not be discounted and why that should be just as strongly as said as Blue Lives Matter. And now, right now at this point in history, and let's just say there's history and there's his story, right? Black Lives Matter more than anything right now because we are not talking about a black cop putting his knee on the neck of a white guy and choking his ass out. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about in 1992 how 4 black cops pulled out a white guy out of his car and beat the shit out of him and got away with it. And we didn't talk about during that trial, how that trial got moved to a heavily black suburban area because black suburban areas didn't exist. Okay? So let's talk about that. I mean, we have phrases right now, token black guy. There's for a reason that's around, right? Because, we got to have, I mean, come on, we have to, a lot of things we say and do. So Black Lives Matter is legit. Black Lives Matter is a force, a movement that needs to be heard and it's felt. It's not just a catchy slogan for crying out loud. So you need to realize, people need to realize, when you have sporting events, commissioners, blah, 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 we got it wrong. Really? That man had to die for you to say, we got it wrong? So let me get this straight. You put your fist up in solidarity at the Olympics or at the NBA and you're shunned, you're banned. And you're not using the proper platform. You kneel on the football field. You're just basically blackballed. Think about that. Hell, think about the word blackballed. Shit. Everything is, the funerals, we dress in black. Angels are dressed in white. I mean, we even the colors represent black, gloom, darkness. How many movies do you see where the clouds come in and it's raining and the evil scenes and stuff like that are portrayed? Hitmen all wearing black. Black is evil. I mean, think about it. Whether we like it or not, that's what's portrayed everywhere. Black is evil, white is good. That's it. And I know you're probably, you stretch it, Navi, you stretch it. I'm not stretching, guys. I'm just letting you know there's so many subliminal messages out there. There's so many things out there that we just don't realize that when black is negative, black is negative, black is negative. You know what? You know what's black? Lives. They matter. Simple as that. We're not talking about a young teenager walking around with a hood, a white teenager and get shot by a black guy. No, that didn't happen to a white kid. That happened to Trayvon. Ronnie King got his ass beat by those cops. George Floyd died. We're talking, that's why Black Lives Matter. You start showing me these videos of these black people really being disrespectful and just belligerent for no reason at all. Show me that. And then we could talk about white lives matter and other things too. But reason why Black Lives Matter and it should not be discounted is because that's what's going on. The hate is towards them more than anything. And it was towards us, towards Muslims. It was there for a long time and it's still there. It's died down a little bit. But you hear, you got the KKK out there chanting. What's that one woman who was talking about, I'm going to teach my grandchildren to hate you and stuff like that. Now she's coming out saying she's sorry, she apologizes, she will be at a rally for Black Lives Matter. You know why? Because her ass got caught and she got fired from her job. That's why she's saying that. She's still racist. You don't change your mind. Oh no, I was wrong. Well, really? You're 60 plus years old. Now you change your mind all of a sudden? Because you're fired. Because you got no more money coming in. The greatest equalizer of all, money. So that's why she changed her mind. Man, don't even get me on that. And it's kind of funny because I got a phone call from a buddy of mine who said, listen, I follow this guy on Facebook and, I just follow him for his real estate journey. And he made a comment that, hey, we don't know if that cop is racist. And it bothered him. Now, my friend is black. He's from Haiti. And he said, hey, that bothers me that he said it. I don't know if I should still mess with him or not. And I said, well, listen, remember I told you before, money's the greatest equalizer, right? Well, I told him, I said, look, bro, just because he said that doesn't mean you should stop rocking with him. But let's be honest, have you made any money? No. Off of him, that is? No. Have you followed any of his advice? Does he give advice? Well, not really. Okay, so is there any business you've done? No. So what have you gained from him? He got some cool stories. Well, then if you're following for the cool stories, then follow for the cool stories. That's up to you. But just because you go to the settlement table with somebody doesn't mean you go to the dinner table with them. And I'm not saying that everything is for sale. Please don't understand that. Don't discount that. But I know people who on their personal lives, they act a certain way. Now, I have morals, don't get me wrong. And if I see someone who's a legit racist or has zero morality, I don't care what kind of money you bring to the table. I don't want shit to do with you. But you're allowed to express your opinion, though. And that was my point with him. That's his opinion. And to be honest, not for nothing, I honestly can't say if that cop was a racist cop or not who killed George Floyd. I know you're going, what the hell, Navi? What are you smoking? No, listen to me. I think he was power tripping. I think legit, this man said, you know what? I have this shield and I have this right, so I'm going to inflict it on you. And he took it too far. I really legitimately think he was a straight power tripping. Because if he was a legit racist, I think there was 4 cops altogether, him being one of them. 2 of those 4 cops were not white. Not 100% white. And he worked with them no problem. But they were his brothers in blue. So, again, if you're a racist, you're racist. It doesn't matter what, we work together. If I'm a racist person, I don't care if we work together. I'm not going to deal with you. I'm just not. So, we have to look at everything as a whole. You can't just say one or the other, but at certain points of history, certain things get a spotlight put on them. And that's why Black Lives Matter. That's where the spotlight is. It shouldn't be, but it is. But it took for the rioting and the violence, unfortunately, the looting and the protesting for people to say, oh, damn, racism does exist. Listen, I went to go buy, I think I've said this in the previous cast before. I don't know if I did. I went to go buy a piece of land and the guy was getting ready to sign until he found he was Muslim and said, wait, you don't go to the church? I'm like, no, I go to masjid, I go to a mosque. He didn't want to sign the contract. A piece of land that's less than a mile from my house. And the guy refused to sign it because I was a Muslim. It exists, people. It exists. Our mistake is if we act like it doesn't exist. Our mistake is to act like there's so much positive stuff around there. Let's focus only on the positive. I'm not saying don't focus on the positive, but good God Almighty, what the hell? You can just ignore these people dying left and right for no reason? The protesters are out there for a reason. But the minute you start rioting, you're no longer a protester, you're a rioter. The minute you start looting, you're not a protester, you're a looter. So don't mix that up. Protesters. Okay, when you hear these things, people saying, I don't understand, how do you burn down something? How's that going to get your message across? Well, guess what? It sure shit did. It wasn't until the violence happened, till the fires and all that bullshit that took place to these businesses and all the stuff that was destroyed, then people said, okay, let's listen. Because if they sat there quietly, no one's going to hear them. Colin Kaepernick sat quietly. No one listened to him. Abdul Rauf, the basketball player, I can't think of his name. He protested quietly, banned from the NBA. And he was a prolific shooter. He was an all-star and everything. When people are quiet, no one wants to listen to them. But it took, unfortunately, this event. It's almost like the intersection, right? The intersection, everyone knows there's an intersection in our development or in our neighborhood that needs to have a traffic light or a stop sign or something because it's really dangerous, right? And everyone says, man, there's going to be a bad accident one day. They need to have and then what happens? That intersection is a bad accident. Someone dies. Oh, next thing you know, traffic light is up. That's what it took, right? To get a traffic light up at an intersection was a death. Well, this is unfortunately, George Floyd's death is what it took to people. And really, it was more than just a death. It was the fact that it was videotaped and caught on tape for such a long time. And the look on that individual's face. Remember, he's not an officer. He's not a cop, because cops don't act that way. That individual on his face, when he was just there, like, had his hands in his pocket, like he was scratching his balls and waiting for something like that. I don't know what the hell he was doing. He just took this man's life because he felt, I can. It's a shame. That's what it took for these people to read. Now let's see what happens now. Now let's see what happens. This is the time. Everyone's coming out saying the right things. Hell, CBS is going to be airing BET Awards. CBS is going to be airing the BET Awards. No one ever knew about the BET Awards unless you watch BET. But CBS, because they know that's the hot topic. Blacks are in. Blacks are hot. So they're going to air it. So let's see what happens. Let's see if it's just a money grabber for these big companies, these corporate KKK companies out there. I'm not saying CBS is one, not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's a lot of corporate white guys who want to keep it that way. Okay? So let's be honest. So now's the time for everyone to step up. And I don't know how many minutes have gone. I'm sure I'm probably over like 20 minutes by now. But for those of the first time, I'm sorry, I don't usually talk about this stuff. But if I was quiet, I was condoning it. And I'm not condoning it by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not. So one last point. And that, to all the females out there, please understand that you're also in this minority, unfortunately. Here's why I say this. When the first man on the moon, what did we say? We said the first man on the moon, right? We didn't say the first white guy on the moon. We just assumed, well, if anyone's going to go to the moon, it's going to be a white guy, right? It ain't going to be a woman. It ain't going to be a black dude. It ain't going to be nobody else. It's going to be a white guy. So it's the first man on the moon, right? Not first human being, first man. Because sure as hell, a woman's not going to do it. Think about it. When a female does anything, accomplishes something, it's the first female to do this. And when you're black, it's a double whammy. It's the first black female to this. We never say the first white guy to do this. We don't. We just say the first man, the first person. That's what we say. But if a female does something, it's the first female. We make it known that it's a female. If a black person does it, it's the first black man, the first African American. And if it's a black female, or even the age, or it's a non-white female, it's their ethnicity followed by female that did this, accomplished this. We don't think about that, right? We automatically assume that if something's going to be done the first time by a human being, it's automatically a white male. Automatically. We never think about these small things. It's ingrained in us, and it has been for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's just those little things that matter. Black lives matter. Blue lives matter. All lives matter. But we need to care for each other bit by bit in our own small communities before we can start caring for each other and keep growing and growing and growing. Don't let this movement just be a quick movement. Let this movement actually move you. Let it guide you where you know you need to be. And if you can't, you just want to be this racist bastard that hates someone who's not your color, I guess you're going to hell. Straight up. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, God bless your heart. Blah, blah. Nah, man, it's F you. You want to be an ass? Be an ass. Be an ass over there. But F you if you want to be a racist. Simple as that. That's what I got for y'all today. And I normally end every show saying, never chase money, always chase the deal, do right by your client, and everything else will fall in place. Well, today's show, I'm going to say, never chase stupidity. Always look for the right path. Do right by your fellow human being, and everything else will fall in place. Be good to each other.